Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. I thought I would mix this one in here while I'm continuing to finalize your ghosts and spirits suggestions. This suggestion was actually within that specific playlist, the ghosts and spirits side, but reading the information on it, it felt to me like it fell more onto the urban legend side. Yeah, you'll know about that more here in a minute. There just seems to be more of a mystery associated with this individual, whoever he was, as opposed to being, let's say, a flat out ghost or spirit. But this has to do with a tale involving some frightful man, someone that was a stranger that suddenly went there somewhere in New Orleans, almost like right out of the blue, and then disappeared shortly afterward. But the stuff he did during that very short time period was very, very memorable. And in fact, he ended up getting a very unique moniker as well. He became known as the Devil Man of New Orleans. In fact, you're looking at a representation of it here. So let's go ahead and let's share this information here. And I'd love to hear from those of you that are on the local side to see if maybe you have a chance to visit these establishments, if they're still around, or the locations themselves. And who knows, maybe you might have a chance of being right in the proximity of where this quote-unquote devil was. So again, let's go ahead and let's share all this information here. So here's what happened. You have to go to about fall of 1938 when all of this urban legend first started. If you go there to New Orleans, there in Louisiana, there is a neighborhood there called Algiers. Some of you, again, on the local side might know exactly what I'm talking about. It's apparently the second oldest neighborhood within the city. It has many, many features there that are prone to Louisiana, including lots of architecture, churches, lots of jazz locations. I imagine lots of bars as well. It's a place that has very, very unique history too. But it was on this time period, on one fateful night, when witnesses began reporting of a strange man suddenly appearing out of nowhere, literally in some cases, and then causing a lot of ruckus during his brief stay. Here's how he was described. He was described as being tall, a hulking figure. He had these quote-unquote cartoonish eyes, and then obviously what stood out most for him was that he had these long black horns and these pointed ears as well. And in other cases, people were stating that he had this tail, kind of like the tail that you would imagine the devil has as well. But this was no ordinary person. This was someone, some kind of entity. And again, that's why people kept referring him to more in the lines of being the devil himself, because of the strange powers that this being had. This is what they included in no particular order. It involved the ability of being able to shapeshift, disappear right into thin air, reappear as well, and then also levitate. So people saw this being actually fly about as well. And on top of that, anyone that went into its vicinity and let's say it was able to look at you, it caused a profound sense of fear within that person. It was almost like this thing, whatever it was, when it gazed upon you, was suddenly causing, as some people describe, as if you were temporarily dying, like you were watching your entire life flash right before your eyes. You would potentially lose consciousness, and then afterward, you would have a bunch of nightmares on there too, at least for a couple of days. So this was definitely not a good thing to run into, this strange being, whatever it was. And despite all of these powers that it had and what it had the potential to do, for lack of a better term, it was more of a nuisance. It was just mainly around walking and either harassing people or going into bars and other type of areas and then just creating some kind of ruckus there too. Here's what I mean, for example. He was said, whoever this quote-unquote devil was said to hurl obscenities and insults to people that were walking near him. He was also prone to going into bars and then running up very large bills, very large tabs, and then when it came time to pay, he was disappearing. That's where people would say that they would see him disappear outright. And then on top of that, he would also target certain minorities as well. He would start fights too. This was in a situation where it had superhuman strength. It knew that it was going to win, but it still started these fights, and then that way it would make sure that that whoever ended up joining that fight would have no chance, as it laughed off into the night, and then it would pick on other people's too. Makes it seem like this thing, whatever it was, this quote unquote devil, was more on the lines of a bully, right? Somebody that loved just picking on people, harassing people, and it did this throughout several days on a continuous basis, so much so that there was almost like a notoriety tied to whatever this creature was. There's some other situations, though, that stand out really, really uniquely when it came to encounters that people had. One of them was this. There was a couple that were traveling home by car one evening, so it must have been sometime in the evening, probably towards the darker times of the day. And when that happened, they saw this man, but again, remember, it can shapeshift. They saw it as a regular person walking down the side of the road. In turn, it was waving towards them, trying to catch their attention, trying to stop the vehicle. They did. They pulled over. The man asked if that person was in trouble, and he said something along the lines of he needed a ride. And so when that happened, it got like a strange turn. It was almost like they realized, almost like that sixth sense, that they in turn were going to have a very bad experience. They described it as a sinister feeling. So it turns out that they ended up declining offering a ride, and then they just drove straight on. But lo and behold, a couple of miles down the road, the same man was now in front of them again, there on the side, walking about, waving his arms just like last time as well. Obviously, they realized, how could this be? How could this absolutely happen whenever they had the man behind them when they drove off? And so they in turn passed him, and then it happened again. They saw this thing, whatever it was, out there in the road waving at them, and so they passed it again. And then finally, this last time, when they saw this man yet again in front of them waving by, they saw it transform into the devil. They described it as someone with big horns, red skin, everything. And then on top of that, they ended up having a horse. Whoever this devil manifested a horse straight out of thin air as well. And then that's when it started riding on the horse and then started almost chasing them. And so when that happened, the couple just fled at that point, speeding off at the highest speed possible. They went to a local police station. The police launched an investigation as well, and they managed to apparently find this devil, whoever he was. They shot at him, but then in turn, there was nothing that could be done to harm him. In other words, he just basically laughed, and then he went off right into the night at that point. So that's one story associated with it. Again, very, very unique. Another one is this. This was a situation involving, I believe it was a bar as well. Remember, this devil of New Orleans apparently liked to frequent many bars. He found a young woman there. They were in turn dancing later on into the night. And then that's when she saw these horns protruding from his head. And so when she yelled for help, that's when the policeman showed up. He must have been either there right at the bar or somebody called him. And they put this man into cuffs. They put him into a jail as well. This man apparently had no qualms about it. Like, it was almost like it was just nothing to see, nothing to do. He was very calm. He actually ended up going to jail. He was placed in that cell, and when the cop turned around, outside, standing from the cell, in other words, in the hallway leading to it, there was this man. Apparently, he had again disappeared straight from his area and then reappeared right in front of the cop. At that point, the policeman opened fire right there, point blank, and when that happened, the bullets just bounced off the ground, or bounced off the body right onto the ground. Imagine it was like something straight out of Superman type level. And then this devil man picked up those very same bullets, again laughing and having some kind of demonic smile, and then just threw them at the cops. And then that's when he ended up changing, shape-shifting, and then moving out, vanishing basically right there. So that's another instance associated with it. But if you want to have yet another strange turn associated with this story, how about this? Apparently, there was someone who was this devil man, like a real person. This was a guy named Carlton Clark, someone who was described, I think it was as a vagrant, like somebody that was there, known locally to cause a lot of disturbances, but somehow the police narrowed down their investigation to him, like the devil man being this guy, Carlton Clark. And at that same time, when he was in a prison, in a jail actually for 30 days, captured and put there because, again, people were thinking, the police were at least, that he was the culprit. The other instances were happening outside. So it kind of made them wonder, did they really have this right person? Did they have someone that was causing all of this mayhem, in other words? But in turn, this guy Clark started stating that he was not the devil, but instead serviced one that was actually greater than the devil himself. He called him a mighty monarch, sometimes known as the King of Zulu, and that this person, this entity, whoever it was, gave him powers because he could speak that other entity's language. That included those supernatural powers I was mentioning before, being able to leave jail and anytime he wanted, and so on. And all he demanded was money in order to do so. And so, and depending on the version of the story, at a certain point, he just decided to leave that jail right there, and nobody ever found this guy Clark again afterward. And that basically ended everything associated with the story. The story is linked to the devil man of New Orleans. So what do you guys think on that part? Was it really tied to one person, this man, whoever he was, who somehow either was a regular man or was tied to something else, some other type of strange status, some supernatural link to some other universe? I don't know, something else, that someone was giving him these powers, and in turn, he was the person that everyone kind of thought was creating this havoc. But at the same time, was he a real, or was he something else entirely different? Fascinating stuff. But as quickly as the Devilman's appearances came, they stopped soon afterward. Again, after this guy Carlton Clark left, there was no other discernible appearances from this strange entity, whatever it was. But let me know what you guys think. Post those comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, especially those of you that are there in the Algiers area. Maybe you know the locales that I was mentioning earlier, those bars, those jails, the locations for them. See if maybe there's some history tied to it as well. It's fascinating to think about it, because what essentially happened here? Was it a regular person playing a prank, or was it something else completely different, something else far beyond even being supernatural, just some other type of entity status? Love to hear what your thoughts are below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.